help them understand what benefit they get with courage. So I define courage as taking ownership of fear, venturing forward with confidence and resilience.
The monsters that is in the sea, we haven't really seen it, no? But it's very clear in our head that there is this something that is coming to conquer us, coming to eat us, coming to consume us. So we are scared.
In the world, I've never seen one. I've lived here 25 years. Apart from going to locations like the wildlife park in the city or the zoo, I've never seen a snake when I've been in Australia.
You listen to them not to react, but to understand. What are you trying to understand?
It's the difference between fear-based and courage-based decision making and how you can own the courage. One thing, so in Australia, we do this thing called an acknowledgement of country, and it's just paying respect to Aboriginal people. So I always like to do that at the start of a podcast if possible.
All right, so you have the chance to do that just now. All right, hello everyone, and thank you for welcoming. Well, thank you for joining Obehi Podcast. My name is Obehi Ewanford. I'm happy to be the host of this podcast. I'm joining from Verona, Italy, which is actually where I live originally. From Nigeria, and it's really this podcast have been for quite some time now, and it's really an honor for us to be here continuously. I've done more than 1,000 interviews, and I usually say that I'm just starting. So it's really an opportunity to be able to talk to different people from different parts of the world, where we learn from their history, from their story, from what they do and why they do what they do. Because the intention is so that other people can also learn from them and pick their brain, if you like, and then also be able to apply what they have learned in their own world. So if this is a conversation that you enjoy, if you have listened to any of our podcasts before, or you want to keep on receiving it, I encourage you to subscribe to this YouTube channel, and why not put a like on this channel so that when any time we bring in a new episode, YouTube can suggest it to you. So yeah, today I'm going to be having an interesting conversation. I'm connected with a guest. His name is Martin. And connected from Australia, and he's going to be sharing with us. We're going to be having a chance to learn from him his idea of life, what he does, his story basically, because it's always about storytelling. Okay, Martin, thank you so much for joining us today. Why don't you tell the people who you are? That is where we should start from.
So I'm Martin Stark. I'm known as the Courage Champion. And as always with the podcast for me, I would just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land where I currently am, the Gamaraga people, and pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. So I spent 20 years in the corporate world negotiating big technology outsourcing contracts. And for the last 6 years, I've been leading global change in sport with the World Game Boxing Championships, fighting hatred and boxing. And I also do leadership development training. I'm a keynote speaker on courage, and I'm a published author. My first book is Courage, Your Right Hook, and I'm currently writing 2 more books.
That is interesting. There is a lot of things that we can actually uncover there. Okay, let's look at it this way first, then we'll come back to that part, because you opened up a chapter that I would like to explore. But first, let's learn about you, Martin. So were you born in Australia, or were you born in another part of the world and you came to Australia?
So you can probably tell by the accent, I was born in the UK. So I was born in Lincolnshire, which is on the east coast of the UK, and I moved to Australia 25 years ago. I'm a proud Australian citizen. I don't even have a British passport anymore, so I very much love living in Sydney and love living in Australia.
All right, that's interesting. Now, when you look back to where you were growing up in the United Kingdom, say you are looking at in your life now, you are like 7, 5, 9, 10 years old. Tell me what you see around you at those days.
What I see is, well, this was the mid-1980s, is disparity. Very much a close-knit community. I used to be involved in the swimming club, would always be hanging out with friends on the swimming club or from school. But where I'm from, there was a lot of disparity. If you go back to 1980s Britain, Thatcher years, there was a lot of economic decline in certain parts of the UK. And that's where I'm from, it had very much look at a fishing history, but just the decline of that industry and decline of other things. So the whole point about having the courage to get through and a tenacity to get through and make the best of what you have was probably an early life lesson.
All right. All right. That is always a lesson for us to learn in life. Life is a teacher. There is, I think there is still a producer in Nigeria. It's a production company. And actually, one of the first to start producing video and also audio. I think they also did audio. It's called Wale Anuga Production. So he produced a series called This Life or Super Story. A lot of Nigerians are very
We've
familiar with
gone.
that.
Sorry, the technology.
Sorry? So I just wanted to come to you to what you were saying there at the end of that conversation. But really, it was an interesting part. I just want to say that. Now, there is something that you said in your first intervention that I want you to sort of revisit again. You said something to the effect of respect to the custodian of the society, something like that, or traditional custodian in Australia. You say you usually do that. I think people want to learn more about that. What does that mean, actually? Can you expand on that?
So Australia, Aboriginal, Torres Strait Islander, First Nations people, the world's oldest continuing culture, 65,000 years of history. So Australia is a beautiful country, beautiful place. And by making acknowledgement of country, you're paying homage and respect to Aboriginal people. Now, that culture goes beyond this. By giving an acknowledgement of country, or if you're an Aboriginal person from that particular Aboriginal land, you give a welcome of country. And that was a way of saying, you're welcome, you have safe passage. And that's rooted deeply in Aboriginal history. So as an adopted Australian, being able to just pay homage and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the land is more than protocol. For me, this is about a part of being Australian and a part of acknowledging history and just simply the respect of doing the right thing.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. We pay a lot of respect to traditional knowledge here. That is what we call the traditional knowledge or the indigenous knowledge system, which, like you said, now in Australia, you're talking of a culture that is several thousands, or that going to almost 100,000 years. You said 65. Okay, you have crossed the 50 mark. So it is important that we respect that. We understand that we can see on the giant, we can see the future. That's what we can see far ahead of us.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you've ever come to this part of the world, it's such a rich history. And I grew up in the UK, so the UK has a very bad, in my view, very bad colonial history and past. And certainly Australia was invaded by the British in the 1780s. But that history can't change. But what we can change is, what have we learned from history? How can we improve things for the future? But also just appreciate another culture. What can you learn from somebody else? And then how can you apply that to your experience? So I talk a lot about courage and moral courage of doing the right thing. And for me, doing the right thing is just the core tenet of respect. And if you want to be successful in business or career, without courage, without moral courage, what do you believe in? What do you value? And what are your values? And that's why I love history so much.
Thank you so much for that. Of course, we're not going to be able to visit the British heritage of colonialism and all the evil that follows that, because that would definitely take us a different trajectory that we're not prepared for today. But that is okay. That is fine. Let's talk a little bit about your coaching. Tell me about what you do. I remember the last time in the pre-interview we touched on courage, and I said it was really an important conversation to have. But let's see how you list that into what you do today in your coaching. So tell me about your coaching. Let's pick it from there.
So my coaching, my whole ethos is based around courage. And as human beings, we're hardwired for fear. As mammals looking around, what's going on? but then how we're brought up, going to school, maybe university, the work environment. There are all of these different ways we're conditioned to what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And that leads into what I call 4 false beliefs. And the first false belief is what we tell ourselves. I can't do organization, is the organizational voice. We can't do this. And then the fifth is the market voice, where the market might say, well, customers aren't ready for this. So you have all of these different things kind of saying what you can and you can't do, just instilling fear. And I describe courage as taking ownership of fear, venturing forward with confidence and resilience. And the way I guide people is I do it from where are you currently at? And then a process which I call PACE. And PACE stands for purpose, action, confidence, and excellence. And courage at your own pace. So somebody like me, quite a courageous person, I might just go and do something and give it a try. Another person just might need to lead up to it. So at your own pace is a way you're comfortable with, but starting with your purpose. Why are you doing something? And then leading into actions of confidence. And then 3, when you become confident, you have that resilience, grit, and determination. And excellence is just that keeping perfectionism at bay, but really achieving, wanting to grow in a way that is confident. And from the other thing, you are purposeful into all of those actions. So that's how I work with my clients, and then I work through how you can unlock different pillars of courage and bring that to your business, career, for your customers or teams. So that's how I work with people and organizations with the core principle of courage.
Why? That is what you said. You help the people understand why they do what they do, whether it is about unlocking the potential that they have inside, or helping them to reaffirm the power that they own. So sometimes you are asking the why. Let's turn that conversation around for you. Why? Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you concentrating on courage? What do you say about that?
I had something which I call part-time courage, and it held me back in my career. I was working in banking, negotiating mid-technology outsourcing contracts. And then unless I actually meet my own standard, I was self-doubting too much while still getting high achiever. And then my manager at the time put in the performance review, I want Martha to be more courageous. And it just kind of clicked. People have been saying it for a period of time. But when I looked back at my own journey, so I've been in 2 comas. This is a tracheotomy scar here. This is my voice because my vocal cords were damaged when I had a tracheotomy. I've got a rare autoimmune condition. I've almost died 4 or 5 times. I've been in hospital over 70 times, 4 major surgeries. So when you go through those experiences, you need a level of courage. I almost died twice before Christmas when I was in hospital, and the ICU team came down twice in 24 hours. So there have been all of these experiences, but still achieving. So that's, for me, was the real realization of being courageous, and everything that I was doing without realizing how courageous it was. And then I realized that was the real solution for people in their business or career who lack that confidence, or there's just something that's not clicking. And I call that just being courageous.
This courage, how do we describe it to somebody? I want you to help us describe it to an amateur, somebody who probably hearing it for the first time, who is trying to grasp the theme. What is courage? How do you describe it to somebody?
So I define courage as taking ownership of fear, venturing forward with confidence and resilience. I'll use the analogy of when you learn to ride a bike. You learn to ride the bike, and then the training wheels, the stabilizers are taken off the bike. And you're trying to balance, you don't get there, you fall off the bike, you keep getting back on. In a few weeks' time, you might be going for bike rides with your mates, or you're playing with your bike on the back guard. You have all of that confidence. So there's been that process, but there's been the fear of the training wheels being removed. There's the confidence as you start to stabilize, and there's the resilience because you keep trying. Now, consider times when you've been courageous in your life. Learning to walk, learning to drive, getting your first job, studying for an exam, all of those things are when you've been courageous. Go for a job interview, one of the most common questions is, tell me a time when. So all of those things are examples where people have been courageous. But fear, the pain of fear. Are you comfortable with missing out on opportunities? Is that pain enough for you to take action? Or are you more comfortable with the pain? And that's really where the driver and motivation for courage, because at some stage people will go, something needs to change, and I'll be brave.
When you look at your client, the people that you are serving, the people that you are helping, um, what process do you have to take them through to be able to really have this courage? Um, Now I'm reflecting. I'm remembering the book that I've read, the book by was it Napoleon Hill, The Think and Grow Rich? Yeah, I think Napoleon Hill at the
Yeah.
point we're talking about fear. But I've also other people that have talked about fear, including Edan Gia, the motivational speaker, and many other individuals. I don't remember who else actually was putting it in a very plainly clear that really we haven't seen the demons before. None of us have seen a demon. And we haven't seen the image that we usually have used to describe this fear. But all across culture, including those that are very old, have an explicit explanation of the fear. Whether it is the demons of the water, the monsters, let me call it that way, at least for the simplicity of the explanation, basically mean the same thing. And for most people, the monsters that is in the sea, we haven't really seen it, no? But it's very clear in our head that there is this something that is coming to conquer us, coming to eat us, coming to consume us. So we are scared right from when we were very small. I remember now because I've made a little reflection on this. It's something I need to explore a little bit further sometime. In my culture, there is the name for monster is Odudu, but we really haven't seen Odudu before. But as a little child now, you are told a series of stories that get the picture almost very clear and vivid in your eyes. So that when your parents say, hey, don't do that, otherwise Odudu will come to catch you in the night, you get the picture you are scared, no? But it get to a point that we are mature, we can demystify some of these things that it really doesn't, is it there? Okay, it depends on what is our religious inclination now. But the truth of the matter is that if we live in the world of evidence, which is show me what you are talking about, prove to me what you are saying, Odudu, the monster or the demons, they are only in our head. But despite that, they still condition us to the point that we are not able to move an inch because we are fearful of something. So what I'm sort of ruminating about is if there are processes to help us really overcome this fear and therefore have the courage to almost do anything and almost all the time. What do you say about that?
So I'm going to come back to the monsters. So growing up in the UK, there are some snakes, but they're not venomous. There's one venomous snake. It's like a bee sting. Now, I'm in Australia, which is the country of the most venomous snakes in the world, but I've never seen one. I've lived here 25 years, apart from going to locations like the wildlife park in the city or the zoo. I've never seen a snake when I've been in Australia in 25 years. I've never seen a shark apart from when I went shark diving in Manly, which is an aquarium. I've never seen our most dangerous spiders. I've never seen the dangerous blue, all of these things, and seen crocodiles when I've been into croc country. So all of those fears, those monsters, which are there in Australia, and I've been travelled all over the world. One of my favourite animals to see are crocodiles because they're nature survivors, but you take a step back. So all of those things that are possible, we manifest. This might happen, that might happen. But if you start to, my definition of courage, of take ownership of fear, how realistic is something that will happen? Why are you feeling this way? And if you can start to use fear as a source of information and then use that to guide you, that's where a more sophisticated decision-making process comes in than always being scared and not taking risks, not trying something. Because the biggest risk you can take is not doing something or being complacent in a business or career, especially with what's happening now with AI. Who is going to know whether it's us on this podcast or an AI avatar? We're at that age now where it's
That's so true. That's so true. Yes, but you see, this fear, I'm sure you're going to have a lot of clients coming to you because this is an age-long conversation, um, and it's going to hear for a very long time. And whether you are talking of maybe the AI or many other instruments that we have of the age to work with, people are scared of it. People don't know how to deal with it. Um, Therefore, they continuously are looking for a way to justify the how do I call it? Because they don't want to take action, they look for a way to justify that, and because therefore they create the image of what can possibly happen. Therefore, they don't take the action, and because they don't take the action, sometimes they end up creating what they are afraid of, so that they see it at the end of the day. Okay, you don't make any, you don't take any risk. You are afraid that somebody can take something from you because you are not taking the risk. That is why you're not taking the risk. The risk is what is going to help you to get the upside of what you are doing on. And if you don't take any action because you believe that somebody is going to take something from you, that thing that you hold is going to become nothing. Okay, let's make it a little bit clearer. Let's say in about 50 years ago, you have €2. Now, €2, of course, was a lot of money in your hand then. And you are going to live a lot of years to 50 years, let's say like that. This €2, you never do anything with it. You had it inside in your house, and this is 50 years later. You take €2 out now, 50 years later. Of what worth really is this €2? It's almost worthless compared to maybe if you have taken a risk. 50 years ago, you invested €2. That €2 will be more than €100 today. But there is still the risk that you could lose it too. I don't know if that makes any sense.
that basic tenet of what is your purpose? What do you want to do? So €2 could be like £2, $2 would have been somebody's hourly wage. Maybe you have to work 2 hours to earn $1 or £1 or €1. And that might be $50 now or €40 now. What would you do with that opportunity? Or would you just waste it and just fear, and then have what was a dream become a future regret? You think, I wished I'd done that. I wished I had the opportunity, or I wish I could go back in time and do this. I often ask, are you comfortable missing out? What is the cost of not doing this? What is it costing you in missing out? I think most people will be, well, no, I don't want to miss out. Okay, so if you don't want to miss out, what are you going to do about that? You're going to complain when others are starting to get the benefit of their courage, and you're going to go, oh, I need this, and what can I learn from you to get to where you are right now? I think as human beings, we have the opportunity to learn from other people. We have the opportunity to learn how we can improve on our courage and get to that process. And it really is as simple as deciding to go on that path of bravery rather than stay on the path of fear and complacency.
Okay, tell me about this the process of getting somebody who have been crippled with fear to moving to the point of taking action. Because if you are so crippled with fear, you don't take action sometimes. Okay, depending on the situation, you might fear that if you raise your leg now and put it somewhere, you might put it into a trap. Therefore, you don't raise your leg, but if you don't move, you're probably going to die there, you know. So now we are telling this individual, you're going to have to move anyway. So it's better off that you just move. Maybe if you make the wrong move, you could retrieve it and maybe go the other way. So I'm trying to understand the process of moving from in a position where you are unable to take action because you are crippled with fear to the point that you are taking action. Is there a way, is there a process that somebody need to go through to get to that point?
For somebody who's in that position, they're so struck with fear they don't want to do anything. There is nothing they can do unless they make the decision to do something. If that's a state you want to be in, there is nothing anybody can do except yourself. Now, if you want to move forward, that's where my PACE framework comes in, your purpose. Why do you want to do it? What are your ambitions? What's the reason for doing something? And then you start taking actions. And you'll notice the difference very early on. How you're spending your time 2 weeks ago, how you're spending your time now. Things that you were delaying 2 weeks ago, what you're doing now. What's the difference between yesterday, last week, last month, last year? What do you think we'll do differently tomorrow, next week, next month, next year? You have to make that decision. You've got to move beyond the pain. And nobody can do that apart from yourself.
Okay, the why. Let's revisit this why in a different way. That we understand from the point of view of the people that you are. If you have the chance to be able to have a conversation with your client, who maybe share with you why they are crippled with fear, or maybe why they might be having these challenges of fear, that they need courage to be able to take action. I'm curious. What did they tell you that maybe held them back for a long time until they met you? Because if they could have the courage that they want, they don't need you. Tell me about that.
It's generally so with my clients, and the first thing I do is the conversation, build rapport and relationship, get to understand, listen to understand, not respond. And then the first thing I do is a courage profile, and that's a courage survey. That's just getting my clients to answer questions. And then understand why they're scared. What are their professional fears? And then go through a series of exercises and discussions of current situation. What difference would courage make to that situation? And a time they've been courageous. Then with the problem, what difference would courage make to that situation? And you're starting to move into making brave decisions rather than fear-based decision making. So that's the first step. And the second step is to work through different pillars of courage. So emotional courage, empathetic courage, moral courage, physical courage, steadfast courage, cerebral courage. Because there are different ways of being courageous. People tend to think it's just moral courage, taking a firm stand for what you believe in, and physical courage, acting bravely when facing fear or pain. Now, as a leader, emotional courage, which is the willingness to open up to the spectrum of emotions when you're feeling down, when you're feeling ambitious, when you're feeling brave, just experiencing all of that range helps you understand yourself better. Empathetic courage, setting aside bias, deep listening, empathy, helps empathy with the barrier. So you're not being so empathetic, you're taking on somebody's fear and anxiety, but that deep listening, having your perceptions and reality challenged by somebody, that is very different than just moral courage or just listening. And then steadfast courage, being resolute, focused, and purposeful. During COVID, we had no option but to be resilient because of what was happening. And then cerebral courage, that creativity, disruption, and innovation, things that you can do in the future. That's what I help leaders and their teams unlock. And then I work through the 4 false beliefs, and then what is your purpose? What are your values? And then turn that into an action plan and a courage plan. And then what are the goals? Achieving that through confidence and excellence.
All right. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. Is it possible that somebody can even say if there is a cost to the lack of courage? Maybe you are in a business environment. because you don't have the courage, you perhaps don't take certain decision. Is there a real consequence to that from the business point of view, from an entrepreneurial point of view? What do you say about that?
I wrote an article for Small Business or Inside Small Business. It's an Australian small business magazine, and I can't remember the stat, but fear-based decision making costs the average Australian small business about either $50,000 or $170,000 a year. So imagine having that in your business in terms of lost versus having that in your business. So we're talking like $300,000. That's the physical cost. That's the dollar and cents cost. Then look at cost of your happiness, time spent unnecessarily being stressed about something, fearing something, delaying something. The engagement of your team don't feel comfortable speaking up, concerned about job security and what consequences of trying to highlight an issue or come up with an idea, or you think of those lost opportunities. And that's the real cost. It's the mental, it's the physical, and for your business or career, what are you losing out on?
And we're talking about the conversation that you usually have with your client before. And now, I have a question about that. When you have this kind of conversation, what usually does it reveal to you in a way that you can then help them? Because I like what you said before that you you listen to them not to react but to understand. What are you trying to understand?
What I'm trying to get people to understand is the difference between fear-based and courage-based decision making and how you can own the courage. And with all of my clients, the experience so far is helping them realize how courageous they already are, how courageous they've already been, and then how to take that forward and the difference that it makes. People often underestimate themselves. I think we all have imposter syndrome, or most of imposter syndrome to a certain level of degree. And it's then looking at what can you do? And it's people who are always going to be looking at it from a calamitous position. Oh, this is going to happen. This is going to go wrong. Whereas somebody going, this might go wrong. Or these are the risks. These are the things I can do to mitigate the risk. But we're going to make an informed decision. We're going to make a better decision, which is actually based on doing a risk assessment based on courage and not fear. That tends to be a very early win for my clients.
Okay, now let's look back to maybe the past, the story we might call it therefore. From your analysis, have you listened to all your clients before you can prescribe solution to them? Which of course, actually, this is the best thing about coaching, in that you need to listen first, understand, then prescribe a solution based on the individual you have in front of you. I'm trying to see how maybe from your understanding how the past experience of the individual might have been contributed to why they are where they are today, in their lack of courage or their inability to take certain steps because they don't have the courage to do so. So the point is how much their past experience might be contributed to that. What have you found in your understanding?
Often it's the past experiences and the lack of acknowledging their own courage or making brave-based decisions. What's held them back? What's been the root cause of something? It's usually that helps unlock. It is that penny dropping, and then using other previous experiences when they've been courageous in the process, which I call the courage bank, which is all those memories that we have to overcome challenges, obstacles. Job interview, tell me time when. It's tapping into that very early on, and then looking at through a courage lens with challenges and problems and things on the horizon, what's going on in the workplace, what's happening in the marketplace, what's happening within their business or professional lives, how you can take a very different pathway forward. And that's what I tend to find with the clients is again underestimated how courageous they've been, but also how much it's held them back, and then how quickly things will change by being more courageous.
Okay, now let's look at a hypothetical situation. You have found individual who you have listened to, you have diagnosed him or her, you understand uh, where they are coming from, what is probably responsible for their lack of courage. Now, what do you do?
What I do is I help them understand what benefit they get with courage, what difference courage will make to a situation. A lot of it is similar to cognitive behavioral therapy and similar to like neurolinguistic programming, but the way I do it, and it's not diagnosing, it's actually just listening and guiding and asking questions, and then bringing all of my frameworks, that purpose, those actions, confidence, and excellence, helping people then move forward through what they've learned, what they want to do, and how they can get there, and also trying to switch off what's actually they're scared of. So, an example: one client, very senior in a tech company, and there was one of her peers was just triggering, leading the meetings, saying, "Oh, do you mind if I do, or can I just do this in a meeting rather than this is what I believe? Can I say something versus just saying something?" How often do you get an email? I'm just following up. Are you justifying following up, or I'm following up? Let's start making those very intricate and subtle changes early on, and that really changes the dynamics.
All right. All right. And what do you usually prescribe? Maybe somebody that is having those kind of challenges. What do you usually prescribe to them as solution? Okay, let's say this individual is not even your client, but you have listened to you, and you want to take some kind of, okay, let's call it baby steps, to sort of get the things under control, little by little, of grabbing, of being able to overcome the fear and have courage. If somebody were to ask you like that, what would you say? What would be your recommendation for them?
So this is where I bring the 6 pillars of courage in and help people understand the power of each pillar and when they can bring moral courage. So, for example, you might be in a sales meeting. Now, people often confuse moral courage as speaking up when something's going wrong, but moral courage is standing by your beliefs and you believe this is the right product or service for the customer, and you say this is going to deliver value for you. Then it might be that more of that empathetic courage. We just need to do some deep listening and listen to a lived experience or a customer saying how much a problem impacts them, and setting aside your own personal bias, and then proposing a solution or a pathway forward for your client that better meets their needs. It's all of those.
You made mention of these 6 parts to courage a number of times. So I think it would make sense if you could break it down again for us, at least each of them, what they represent and things like that. Is that possible?
Oh, absolutely. So moral courage, which is taking a firm stand for what you believe in and committing to your values. The example I gave earlier, you have an idea, you're in a meeting, you might not have said something before, but you suggest and you say you believe it, then this is the reason why. Then there's physical courage, which is acting bravely when facing fear or pain. You might have a busy week. It could be exams or very tough client meetings. It's the end of the quarter or end of a very stressful week. So you notice physically what you need to bring forward. You just act bravely, not scared of what's happening, not saying you're not scared, but not fearing what's happening. And the third, emotional courage, which is the willingness to open up to the spectrum of emotions, of feeling scared, happy, all of those different things which help you understand more of who you are as a person. Empathetic courage, which is that deep listening, setting aside biases. There's steadfast courage, which is being resolute, focused, and purposeful. It's that tenacity, that resilience, continuing when there are really difficult challenges, finding ways around the challenge or an obstacle. And there's also cerebral courage, which is that creativity, disruption, innovation. You see a way that maybe others have overlooked. You think this is the best path forward. So you drive that with your courage. So those are the 6 pillars.
All right. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. Now, for somebody that have listened to you to this point, because I remember you did also make mention of your book just now. And could you tell them how to find you? Those who want to maybe become your client, they want to learn more about it, they want to connect with you, to you. Tell them how to reach out to you.
So there's my website, martinstark.co, and the best place is LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, Martin Stark AU. I'm on there all the time. I probably spend far more time on LinkedIn than other social media platform. That's probably the best way we can.
All right. So, what would be your final thought here to conclude the conversation that we have talked, where we have talked about courage, your coaching, and how you help people? I assume professional within the area of business to overcome challenges like fear and to have courage and to act, to take action. The action is fundamentally important if you want to get results. So, what would you say as a final message to them?
My final message is a couple of questions. What is fear costing you, and what difference would courage make to your business, career, and life?
All right, that's fair enough. And I think the person that is listening need to pay attention to that. Uh, there is a cost when you don't take action. And even, of course, depending on how you are able to interpret that, if you don't take action, you can't simply say, well, I am innocent because I don't take action. Inaction sometimes can have a consequence. For example, if even in the court of law, if you see somebody burning or somebody is about to jump into a hole or somebody is about to harm another person, you say, well, I'm not going to do anything. I will just stay there and watch. And, and if that lead to the death of people, apart from just the moral the moral defect that might be, or the moral wrong that might be, you actually can be held accountable for that if you have the possibility of taking action and you refuse to take action. So inaction is not always free, that because you don't take action now everything is okay. So we need to take action. We need to eliminate the fear that is crippling us and take action. Uh, I think sometimes even the wrong action is better than no action at all. At least it make you move. One day,
Well,
somebody was saying that if this world was to stop moving, all of us would die because this world is running on motion. Life is in motion. The river is in motion. The plant is in motion. We can't stop without taking action.
when a plane is taking off, what would happen if it didn't? There'd be a crash, people would lose their lives. So it's following a path. And when the captain says you need to put the seatbelts on, the seatbelt sign, because there's going to be turbulence, you put fasten the seatbelts. But that turbulence is temporary. It's rough for a period of time, but the captain and co-pilot, they're all taking action and moving things in a slightly different path, but you still get to the same destination. What would happen if you turned up to the airport and didn't check in? You didn't go through security, you didn't go through passport control, you didn't board the plane? You'd be stuck. You'd be where you are. You wouldn't be heading to that destination, and you'd be the one missing out. It probably cost you more. You have to buy another ticket, or walk, or get the bus, or drive. It's all of those things. There is a cost of not doing it.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate that, Martin. This has been a very interesting conversation and also kind of so staring as it were. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No worries. It's been great. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much.